The Ouroboros is an ancient mythological symbol dating back a couple thousand years, and its name is emblematic of the shape it takes. A snake eating its own tail, a never-ending loop with seemingly no beginning or end. And I don't think that there is a better allegory than that to describe Weekly Shonen Jump. For as long as I've been a fan of manga, Weekly Shonen Jump has always been my preferred method of consumption for that medium. You really just can't beat an enticing story that delivers on all fronts, from the art to the characters to the contemplative themes, and something new for said story is delivered every single Sunday. It's a method of delivery that remains undefeated, which is why the highest selling manga of all time, as well as most other manga that you'll find on that top sales list, come from the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine. Other means of distribution are not obsolete. Dandadan and Spy X Family, as well as their predecessors, have indisputably proven this not to be the case. Attack on Titan became a worldwide phenomenon while only dropping a single chapter once a month. I mean, the anime did do a lot of the heavy lifting there, but regardless, the point is, even with Weekly not being the only route for immense success, it is still by and large the way with the most unprecedented gain. From a pure numbers standpoint, across the board, Weekly is simply king. But that crown takes a heavy toll. It is no secret that despite the unparalleled success that a lot of mangaka attain when working for the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine, the lives that they live to attain said success are anything but the dream. The working conditions required for this magazine are legitimately insane, and I do not know how half of these people even manage to meet the deadlines assigned to them. Because, as a mangaka, your job does not stop at simply creating a story and then bringing it to life with art. If you are lucky and talented enough, then comes the promotional art that must be drawn. In addition to the interviews that must be given, then comes the consultation on a potential anime. There's also the volume covers that have to be addressed, not to mention outside collaborations, whether that be drawing another mangaka's main character, or holding meetings with Burger King for some cross-promotion, and lest we forget, you're doing all of this while writing out a story and drawing at least 15 pages worth of art every week. Tatsuki Fujimoto, the author of the popular Chainsaw Man series, has some experience with the weekly format, and in an interview he shed some light about that harrowing time in his life, stating, "It was my first time doing a weekly serialization, and it was honestly brutal. I was constantly worried that it might get axed, so all I could think was, if I just turn everything in on time, I can keep this going. I was so swamped that I barely slept. When my assistants came by, I still had to get up to greet them, so I ended up just sleeping by the front door." Now, I mean absolutely zero disrespect to Fujimoto with what I'm about to say here, but his story isn't even in the top 10 when it comes to just how much these people can go through. The commonly referred to quote-unquote big three of the shonen world are not just excellent examples of what it takes to make it. They are also the greatest cautionary tale for Weekly Shonen Jump. Type Kubo, or Tite Kubo, the author of Bleach, nearing the end of his series suffered from a partially torn shoulder tendon, which at that time he apparently never had the chance to get surgery for. He also had numerous other health issues that led to an astronomical deterioration of his health, eventually leading to the story he'd been crafting for the better part of a decade to impromptu end in a rather unsatisfactory way for fans of the manga. Thankfully though, he has actually gotten a second chance with the Thousand Year Blood War anime to correct his mishaps that were created through circumstance. Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, endured something very similar. He had severe physical and mental issues due to the grueling schedule of a weekly manga artist. He was constantly working 20-hour days, and that inevitably landed him several hospitalizations. Then there is Oda, the man behind the highest-selling manga of all time, and the only one out of these three that is still actively working at that magazine. In the first week of October 2025, One Piece was initially scheduled to release chapter 1162. However, that never came to pass. The manga was forced to abruptly go on break due to the sudden decline in the author's health. Oda's work ethic and dedication to his series is nothing short of admirable, and seeing just how much of his life he's given to creating this modern-day epic, It really makes me hope he'll be able to finish what he set out to accomplish almost 30 years ago. But with his schedule being what it is and the illnesses building up, the future becomes more and more uncertain. What also is an unfortunate byproduct of this egregious overworking is an inevitable dip in quality that usually takes place near the tail end of the story. I've already mentioned what happened with Kubo, but Gege Akutami, the mangaka behind Jujutsu Kaisen, he himself has stated that near the end of his manga's run, his health just collapsed, and Oda actually stepped in to help him get the necessary treatment. Akutami was then hospitalized in June 2024 and underwent surgery for an appendectomy. That particular procedure was cited as the reason for a 3-week hiatus that was taken after the submission of chapter 262, which only contained about 9 pages. I could keep going on with this point. I have at least 3 other people in mind that have gone through very similar circumstances. However, I think the message is clear. So now, what's the solution? The best way to make sure that incidents like this never happen again would be to simply abolish the weekly release schedule. But I believe that I've also made it clear throughout this video that that method of delivery is far too profitable for that to ever happen. A simpler solution is just more mandatory break weeks company-wide. The idea that Oda, who has constantly been working for almost 30 years, and has created a manga that sold over 578 million copies worldwide, beating out the likes of Batman's total sales, and closing in on Superman, is somehow still subservient to this schedule is mind-blowing. But like I said, the only ailment for this particular problem with Weekly Shonen Jump is more consistent break weeks. Also, I actually think more mangaka should take it upon themselves to do what Yuki Tabata did. After years of sickness from the workload that had also started to affect his family, he decided to do what was best for his health and for them and made the move from Weekly Shonen Jump to Jump Giga Magazine, which allowed him to release a bulk of chapters every couple of months. And you know what? That change didn't decrease the sales of the manga volumes at all. It was a very bold decision to make, and it paid off, and I absolutely think that more mangaka should follow in his steps. Especially if you've been in the game for quite some time. Being 50 years old and still trying to maintain a schedule that was a difficult enough task for you to accomplish in your 20s is nasty work. But anyways, with all that said, that is going to do it for this one. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with the notifications on. And while you're down there commenting, let me know. What improvements, if you were in charge, would you make to help these mangaka better deal with such a killer schedule? Like I said, let me know, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.